Professor Worgley's here. We just got done with the slides. Let's move on over to the code. Let's download the code from lecture number 11. We're learning JQuery. We're going to go over some coding examples. Download the code, unzip it. Make sure you unzip the directory and put it in a location that you're going to remember. I have a documents directory, then 2830, and then my lectures directory. We actually are starting a new lecture, number 11. So you can put lecture 11, JQuery, and then put the code right into that directory. Now we're going to be in brackets. Make sure you save the previous file. We're going to open up a new folder, the JQuery directory. So I'm going to start with the first file, location.html. Make sure you do live preview. And right now you're going to see nothing is appearing because I just want to focus on the jQuery and JavaScript part of this lecture. Now, you'll see I have the 5 required tags. So I have the doc type, HTML, head, title, and the body. And you'll see I have these script tags here. So I'm going to start to program some jQuery code. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to console dir. So I'm going to print out the directory structure of the variable jQuery. So I'm going to save this. And in order to see the console, you need to right-click the page, do an inspect, and click the console tab. So you'll see here, jQuery is not defined. So I need to add the import to jQuery in order for me to start using jQuery. So you'll see in the directory, I actually have a JSLibs, and inside that directory, I have jQuery 2.1.4. So I need to add this import before I start using jQuery. Remember, order is important. Let's say I put the import after my scripts. Well, it's not going to recognize this jQuery variable because the jQuery library has not loaded yet. So it needs to be before you start using jQuery. So I'm going to put another script here. It's going to have a source tag. It's going to go to my JSLibs directory, and I'm going to import jQuery 2.1.4 min.js. This is the minified version, so it's small and compressed. If I open it up, you can actually double click on this, and it'll open up in brackets because it's just JavaScript. And you'll see it's hard to read. I have functions, I have variables A and B, but there's no spaces. All the variables are as small as possible. All the function names are as small as possible. And that is why it's called the minified version. But that's the jQuery library. We will take a look at the uncompressed version here soon. After I've added this script tag, I've successfully linked jQuery. And if I refresh the page, you'll see I don't get that error anymore. So when I put this link here, I am linking a local copy of jQuery. This is going to be a local copy. I can also link from a CDN. If I come to the browser and search jQuery CDN, you'll see the first one that pops up is from jQuery.com. Google used to be very popular, but you might as well link it from jQuery since they are the developers. And once I click on this link, you'll see I have the jQuery core. What we're using now is the jQuery core. We're going to talk about jQuery UI later. Let's focus on the core. So if I click here, you'll see the uncompressed version, and it's going to tell you what link to use. So I can either use the uncompressed, I can use the minified, which you'll see min.js. I can also use the slim, but if I use the slim, I'm going to start losing some functionality. And if I use the slim minified, it's going to be even more compressed. So usually I'll either use the uncompressed or the minified, and I think that is quick enough. But if you're just using some basic features of jQuery, maybe the slim is sufficient. Depends on how you are implementing your page. So here I'm going to click on the minified version because that's the one we're using in the code already. I'm going to copy their script tag. You'll see they've added some integrity and cross origins. And I'm going to put that right below my jQuery script. So if I want to add it from a CDN, you'll see it's possible just by going to jQuery.com and adding this from our CDN. Now what I like to do is I like to tab these out. So it's going to look like this, or actually you can do it like this as well. That way it's easier to read, or you can have it all on one line depending on how you want to do it. I'll usually have this as the first line, then enter, and brackets will tab it over for me. So let's write some notes. Here we are linking a local copy of jQuery. We can also use a content delivery network or a CDN to link jQuery. Both of them will work. You'll see the second one's actually overriding the first one, and the function changed a little bit. You'll see f of k. If I comment this out and refresh the page, you'll see f of n. So f of n is going to be version 2, f of k is going to be version 3. But either way, you're going to see that the function has loaded. And if I open this up, you'll see a lot of attributes with jQuery. So I have the for each, I have the error, I have the get JSON. These are methods we're going to use later. I have the is array. I have the in array. That's very important. I use that frequently. I have no conflict. I have the text. Do they have HTML? They have HTML pre-filter. And we don't see HTML, but they do have that function. It's most likely in the prototypes, which we'll talk about later. Now, you'll see jQuery is successfully imported, and I'm using jQuery through a single global function call here using the jQuery keyword. Now, we're going to be using this jQuery keyword a lot. Every time I need to access jQuery, I need to call the jQuery function. So if I use the jQuery keyword, I'm going to be doing this quite a bit. I'm going to be writing jQuery this, jQuery that. So it'd be nice if there's an easier way. And in fact, there is. In fact, the dollar symbol is a variable name in JavaScript, and jQuery uses it as an alias, so you don't have to type out jQuery all the time. So if I do a console.dir with the $ after I've successfully imported jQuery, and let's say I refresh the page, you'll see I printed out the same function. So let's take some notes. We can use jQuery through a single global function call using the jQuery keyword. However, we're going to be using that keyword a lot. So it'd be nice if there was an easier way that we don't have to type that out all the time. And in fact, there is. The $ is a valid variable name in JavaScript, and jQuery uses it as an alias, so you don't have to type out jQuery all the time. So in other words, the $ is equivalent to jQuery. And we can even make our own alias. So let's say I type a variable JQ, and we set that equal to the $. And then I print that out. So I do a console.dir on JQ. I'm going to print out the entire directory structure for JQ. Do a refresh. You'll see it's pointing all to the same jQuery function call. And they have a function called no conflict. So I can free up the global $ variable. If I type the $ and then call the no conflict function and then try to print that out, now let's see what happens. Save it, refresh. You see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me comment out one of these, because I think we're defining jQuery twice. Okay, so I comment out the CDN, refresh, and you're going to see it's actually undefined. So what happened was I have two different $. I have one for 3.4.1, and I have one for 2.1.4. So once I get rid of one of them and I call $ no conflict, you'll see the $ is undefined, but I can set that up again. If I say var $ equal to jQuery and then print this out, you'll see it is now defined again. So essentially, this is what jQuery did. They had the jQuery keyword, but instead of calling the jQuery keyword every time, since that's very cumbersome, they set that equal to the $, and thus I can just use the $ as an alias or a shorthand to call the jQuery library. But that only works if I have the proper link. So the first requirement to use jQuery is to have the link. The second one is to use the $ or the jQuery keyword, but might as well use the $ because that's industry standard. And no conflict is hardly used, but let's say you had two JavaScript libraries, just like we did, and that we want to use the $ for one of them. We don't want to use the $ for the second library. Well, I can use no conflict, I could say the $ is for the first one and jQuery is for the second one. And in that case, I can use both libraries at the same time, because sometimes in a library, they get rid of some features that you really need, and sometimes they add some features that you really need. So sometimes you want to use some features from the old one and the new one to make a total package. And I can do that by using no conflict. So let's write some notes. Remember, we can make our own alias. Here, calling no conflict frees up the $ variable. This is typically done when you're using more than one JavaScript library, and one of those libraries might also want to use the $ as an alias, or maybe I'm using two different versions of jQuery. After I call no conflict, the $ will be undefined, but no worries. If I want to set that up again, I could use the jQuery variable. So remember, if I want to use jQuery, I need to add the import. After I add the import, I'm going to use the $, and then I can access the functions and methods and properties in the jQuery library. We're going to continue to the next video. We're going to look at some more code. Stick with Professor Wergeles, and we'll see you in the next video.